Okay. Note to self, remember, it's Final Fantasy Anthology is this collection, not Chronicles or whatever the hell I... Say it right when you do the intro. Hi, everybody. I've fucked this up like 6 times if you're watching this on YouTube. So, I'm really, really, really embarrassed here. And, yeah, so I don't want to get this wrong. No, this is not a hack. And as far as I'm aware, no, it does not have Final Fantasy Anthology as a category on Twitch. Granted, I also did not look, so... Because I'm fine with putting it as, like, just the regular thing. And if somebody gets mad that I'm playing the PS1 version in the SNES category, well, all I can say is, good for you, you know? Anyway, this is Final Fantasy V being played on the PS1 Final Fantasy Anthology Edition. I almost... Oh, goddammit, I actually did screw up a bit. So, I was lying when I said I screwed up this intro. This is the first time I've done it. I was gonna say the wrong one afterwards and be very annoyed, because I keep forgetting that this is, in fact, not Final Fantasy Chronicles. This is Final Fantasy Anthology. For those of you who are unaware, on the PS1, when Final Fantasy VII and all of the following ones became huge hits, much to the chagrin of many of the FF8 haters, I know, because some people are still, like, really sticks up their ass about that. They, and by they, I mean Squaresoft, saw fit to release the previous games in the series on the PlayStation. Asterisk, because they did not release Final Fantasy III on any of these. Well, okay, they did release it on Final Fantasy Anthology, but it was called Final Fantasy VI by that point. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. Give me all of your money. Oh yeah, I didn't plug my throne this time, did I? Well, I'm doing real butts at this. Anyway. So... they released 3 compilations of these games. This is Final Fantasy Anthology, which I believe is the earliest release of them, interestingly, which contains Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy V is a game that I have low-key always kind of considered to be one of the best in the series, and Final Fantasy VI is one that I have some extremely complicated feelings about. And I will leave it there because I kind of don't want to get swatted today. Final Fantasy Chronicles is a very weird set because it contains Final Fantasy IV. Somehow they did not release that as like one of the first. I think that was the second set that was released. Possibly even the third. It contains Final Fantasy IV, which I'm surprised that didn't come out as like one of the first of them because FF4 is... famously very popular in Japan. It absolutely fucking cratered in the US, by the way, but that there's probably a lot of factors that contribute to that, so I won't even talk about that too much. But the other game that it contained was not a Final Fantasy game, it was Chrono Trigger for some fucking reason. And I guess that it's kind of like, you know, Chrono Trigger is a little bit just like this cousin to the series because, of course, it's a turn-based RPG developed by Squaresoft, has a lot of similar tropes and names and design stuff, but also it has character designs by Akira Toriyama, and it's, I think, the first game that Tetsuya Nomura worked on. So for those of you who are angry about Kingdom Hearts, well, why don't you go out and smash up your copies of Chrono Trigger? Go on eBay, spend like $200 for a cartridge, and take a fucking sledgehammer to it, you fucking freak. Asterisk, I actually quite like Chrono Trigger. Yeah, so it is very strange to be releasing it as a Final Fantasy product. The other one was Final Fantasy Origins, which is Final Fantasies 1 and 2, which is about what you would expect. These are the first reissues of the 2D Final Fantasies. They would, of course, be re-released like millions of times afterwards. With the exception of Final Fantasy 3, which you may notice is not in the PS1 set. And in fact, I believe the first proper re-release of it that wasn't just 100% emulation, and that may not even have been a thing, was the 3D version for the DS. I played like 5 minutes of FF3 for the DS, and I sold it right back to the disc replay that I bought it at. Which will tell you about how I felt about that port. Answer, one of these days I have to actually play it. In fact, FF3 does seem to be a bit of like a major breeding ground for a lot of important things in the series, so I have to play it for other reasons too. But all of the other games got re-released for the GBA, except maybe FF4 didn't. I don't recall. But that had several re-releases that had a PSP port, that had also a 3D modeled version for the DS that, from what I've heard, is much harder than the original. But I have never played that version either. But 5, 6, and 1 and 2 as Dawn of Souls got reissued for the GBA. And then all of them, I think, got released on iOS, and those ports were bad. And there's the Pixel Remaster nowadays, which is expensive, especially for something that cuts out all of the added content from later games. Although some of them do have some minor quality of life things. I don't know. I haven't played them offhand. I've just seen other people play them and read about the features. I forget, does the FF1 version of the Pixel Remasters have casts per day as a mechanic? Well, that's all right. If you want to help me be able to afford those, brilliant segue here, have the collection on Switch on my wish list, and you can blah blah blah. I'm a massive harlot. Anywho, listen, I'm going to pretend that it's acceptable because it's Pride Month and I'm queer, so. Or you can contact me elsewhere and be like, hey, I could buy these for you on Steam. Don't do that right now, though, because I'm pretty sure they're not on sale. In fact, we've let this intro cutscene loop several times, and one of my chatters is expressing his crush that he has on Faris. I can go look at my my Steam wish list and confirm for you that, in fact, no, the Pixel Remasters are not on sale, and they're all like $18 a pop. Except for 1 and 2, which are 12. Huh. But what is on sale, apparently, is El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron. I did not realize that was even on Steam until like a couple of weeks ago, when they did the last big seasonal sale. And I got fucking flashbanged by this knowledge, because that's a game that I literally only heard of because I saw people playing it on playing the characters on a journal role-playing website. So I'm like, that game has to have sold maybe 12 copies of it in total. And there's a fucking remaster on Steam. What a... Man, what a fucking thing to see. Anywho. As you can see, the attract mode, although quite attractive, especially for the late 90s, it's quite short. Let's get back to business here and play us some Final Fantasy V. Oh, we have a... This is a memo, like a quick save, I would assume. So now it's going to be like, hey, yeah, checking the memory card. It was brought up, by the way, earlier. I did kind of gloss over it. Load times in these. Yes, infamously, these are not really fast loaders. But I just generally think I prefer the way the script and everything is in the PS1 version compared to later versions. And I will admit that I am not the most knowledgeable about all of those because I did not play the GBA version of completion. I own a reproduction cart that I got of it from a friend for $1 years ago. But I never finished that one. But from what I recall, there were some script changes that relate very heavily to, especially to the character of Faris. And also just in general, I think that this is an interesting time capsule of like, this is what the localization was like back in the day. Oh, also the text is running past very quickly. Here's Lena and the king, presumably not Elvis. Lena over there. I learned very recently that apparently the Spectral Necromancer boss in FF14 in the Hero's Gauntlet, which is a boss that angers me, is modeled after Lena. Her name is written as Reina here because of very questionable localization. It, to be perfectly frank with you, took a very long time for translation of these games to actually get good. I would say that like 9 or possibly even 8 was very likely the first good one. There are some very good localization choices made in, for example, FF6. So there's a lot of, they did what they could pretty well. But a lot of them run into issues, and also quite a lot of them pre-7, even in the PS1 era, deal with some issues of character limits and the devs not really being able to expand those too much. So you have like, I think it's a 10-letter limit for the names on a lot of the PS1 on a lot of the SNES stuff. And it's even tighter. I think it's 8 letters for Final Fantasy IV, released in the US as Final Fantasy II. So, for example, instead of the 4 fiends all having the appropriate names of being references to Dante's Inferno, to the Divine Comedy, you had Scarmiglione being renamed to Mylon. You had Rubicante being renamed very closely to Rubicant. Cagnazzo was mistranslated. His name is actually written as like Cainazzo, I think, but of course, Cagnazzo is spelt more like Cagnazzo for anybody who cannot speak a lick of Italian, parentheses me. And Barbariccia was localized as Valvalis, fairly infamously. And there's a lot of other instances of just shit like that happening in various RPGs. Final Fantasy does not take the worst of it in any regard, even when it comes to like spell names in FF1 where you have 4 letters. I've seen games with 4-letter character limits that are even worse with that stuff. In fact, we played one of them last year. Last year? I think it was last year. Hold up. There's some shit going on. I actually have a list of the games that I played last year because I meant to make it a thing on my backlog that I just never actually finished. Yeah. Okay, it was in fact last year. Anyway, I'm sure that you all are like really sick of me just wasting this much time. But I gotta get a little bit accustomed to my controls and stuff too. Our class status here is described as bear. This would later become listed as freelancer, but I believe the Japanese name is sort of meant to be more like unarmored or something like that, or unarmed. The term freelancer is a localization choice, basically, is what I'm getting at. And to be honest with you, it's probably a lot better than going with a direct translation, because right now you've essentially told me that not only is Butts completely unemployed, he's also completely naked, which, as it turns out, is not true. There's an optimum function in our equip settings. I'm sure that that's going to make some mistakes. We go take ourselves a little look around here. That way is not the correct way to go. It has been a large amount of time since I've played this game, so please excuse me as I fumble around a little bit. Wait here, Boko. That's right, Boko is our Chocobo buddy. He's yellow and he's got feathers. And he carries us around without having to deal with fighting monsters. And we get a nice little fade into the battles. Brysolf with the subscription. Thank you for very kindly for a resub for month number 5. I appreciate it. Have you gotten to this one in... You were still in FF4 in the Pixel remasters last I checked, right? Yeah, that's what I was saying. So as we are still named question mark for the time being here, just call me no ellipsis. As we get to a naming screen, a bit of loading, as you can see. PS1. And of course, we're going to put in the classic of Butts. Because that's what it was at this point. He was Butts Clouser. Just got Edge. Okay, gotcha. So, our good friend Butts here, of course, has later been referred to as Bartz, primarily, in English-speaking territories. I want to comment on that briefly, because I think that a lot of people sort of perceive this as being a little bit like the Eris Aerith thing, where Eris was a not really best choice transcription, basically. And so they switched over to using it as Aerith later on. And a lot of people have generally been like, oh yeah, well, it was always Aerith. I think that that is a little bit less determinate than we would like. But with regard to Bartz, yeah, that is not actually a more accurate translation as far as anybody can tell. As far as I'm aware, it has always been either Batz, B-A-T-Z, or Butts in Japan. But on the other hand, everybody just immediately started yucking it up at the name of Butts, because of course they did. And so somebody at Square who has no sense of humor was like, ah, shit, we gotta change this. They're beating his ass in the quote retweets. And so they were like, you know what? The only people who know less about Romanization than us are Westerners. So we can fairly call it Bartz, even though that's probably not really that acceptable. And nobody will be the wiser. Anyway, this is Galoof, and he remembers absolutely jack nothing except that he's named Galoof. Which, I mean, if I was named Galoof, I might have some like name traumas too, so I would probably remember that, but fair enough. I mean, we are kind of just going as a crew here, and Butts is just sort of a wandering fella. He's got no sense of direction. He's just out vibing with his bird. Until eventually he just kind of goes, maybe I should go with them because it's the right thing to do, but I guess we'll hash that out later. Either that or we just bump into each other again. And then Butts goes, well, if we're going to be in the same place all the time, can't hurt to just make this a little bit easier for ourselves. But let's get on our bird and be on our way. Somewhere else. Oh! Jeez, don't hit the brakes on your chocobo so hard. Probably wear a helmet, too. Also, like, where's his starting point? Is just off in the forest? Does Butts just kind of, like, live in the forest and it's just like he's out walking the neighborhood? What a strange fellow. I mean, he's a Final Fantasy protagonist. Of course he's a strange fellow. He's practically required by law to be a bit of a funny guy. So I like that when we win a battle, the message that starts off displaying that is, yes! That will never get old, and we will have probably a couple of good laughs at that, and frequently we're going to be like, that is well deserved. Anyway, since Lena's on screen again, I forgot to finish what I was saying earlier, where I mentioned that the Spectral Necromancer from Heroes Gauntlet is supposed to be based on her Necromancer sprite from a job that was added in the GBA version. And I just want to say that I'm actually kind of sad that I can't actually get that outfit, apparently. I looked around for it, and yeah, that's the current case. And unfortunately, my best bet otherwise is just modding. And oh boy, that's I was a little disappointed in that regard too, because there were mods for it, but I was still I was disappointed in them for, you know, a reason that's perhaps understandable. Anywho. Ah, yes, I see. So Bart's probably actually... I called him by the correct name. Oops. Butts probably actually lives in the general area of Tool, so... Did Galoof suffer more head trauma? That's probably bad. Thank you, Galoof. Get a load of this clown. What a bunch of crap. Yeah, exactly. This bird's got hops, that's how. Although maybe less so with only 3 folks on board, but hey. Well, we resolved that very quickly. There must be a way. Alright, let's just try whatever. Also, Roundy, how's it going? Hope you're having a good day. It's almost a bit of a shame that we can't have Boko enter battle for us. But, hey. 3 party members to start with. We're off to a start. Yeah, it looks like that's been unburied. That's right, Boko. You're a bird, so that means that you're weak to rock slide and you will die instantly if something happens to you. And we don't want that to happen. Boko, you need to continue to exist, that way you can appear as on Butts' MTG card, clearly. See, Galoof is doing less damage, but he's doing more hits. That's pretty cool. So, this game leans very much into having a job system, which is a thing that we'll start getting to explore a little bit later. And your character's stats are a little bit on the kind of similar side. There's a little bit of differences. This is the PS1 Anthology version. Just because I guess at least part of it is probably PS1 nostalgia related to I played Metal Gear Solid recently. I was just like, yeah, the PS1 game, you know, I'm in the mood for more PS1 gaming, but I am doing this with an emulator this time. So that way, in case my disc has like a random hairline scratch that I didn't know about, it doesn't make my console start like shitting fire everywhere or something. That'd be a little bit hazardous. So, as I was saying, Final Fantasy V is a game where there's a job system, and your characters have like slightly varied stats between each other, but not massively. But there's some roughly similar I feel like I had my voice crack there a little bit. So, across the game, we gain access to 5 characters. We get Butts, or Bartz as he's known in more recent translations. We get Lena, who here, as we can see, is known as Reina. We get Galoof. We get Faris. And there's a 5th character named Kryl, who we get after Galoof bites it. I'm spoiling this a little bit, but I assume that it's a 30-year-old game. This game is over 30 years old. So I would assume that for a lot of people, you know, the fact that Galoof kind of kicks the bucket is well-known-ish. So you might think that Kryl and Galoof have the exact same stats, and that's not true. Butts and Galoof have very similar stats, not identical, I discovered. A friend told me they were identical, and I ended up fumbling into information that proved that that was not quite accurate. And Lena and Kryl have very similar stats. I think the idea is primarily that the boys are a little bit more physically oriented, and the girls are a little bit more magically oriented. You know, classic way that Final Fantasy treats women. It could be worse. It could be 6. But I won't dig into that right now. Again, I kind of don't want to get lynched. But Faris is quite interesting because they have stats relatively in the middle. Faris is very much an all-rounder. And yeah, we'll be talking more about Faris later. So that'll be fun, interesting. One of those things. Oh, calm down, guys. Yeah, we'll be dealing with that later, too. That's... we gotta get jobs first. We got to go and consume the job crystals. Yeah. Free self, please. So, Also, the enemies in this cave, known as Stropers, they are not to be confused with the variant of that enemy that we see in FF9, nor really the one in 14, where they're basically just kind of miniature Malboros. And by miniature, I mean roughly the same size as any other Malboros. They just hang out in the swamp area in Gridania. Gridania, the Shroud, pardon me. It's near Gridania. And they're significantly lower level than the actual Morbles that you encounter in, like, Orem Vale and Mortona and places like that. They can still absolutely fuck you up with horrible status effects, though. Basically, what I'm saying is I'm pretty sure that we can't throw a soft at those guys and kill them instantly. Not that we have access to those, and of course they're so weak that, like, why would we bother, but... Yeah, the FF9 uses soft on the enemy, and it just becomes too... It becomes too soft to live. That's pretty great. Hello, that purple bandana on that fella. And also butts hopping sideways there. That's pretty good. Is this the Yar version of I believe so. We'll have to wait until Faris is on screen a little bit more and talks a little bit to actually... They're pirates, for Christ's sakes! What are we gonna do? Waltz on board? I mean, this is also... This is also the one that has Dingleberry in place of Tonberry, so... Saved it. Faris is a case, all right, and again, like I said, we'll talk about Faris later when it comes up. When that is a thing that we have to have any vague semblance of a concern about for storytelling reasons. We will discuss. And in fact, we'll probably give a little bit of history about how that's been handled. Because there's a lot to say. Can we sneak a nap? Alright. Mr. Purple Bandana there is just kind of nodding off. All the pirates are like half asleep here. Are they okay? Did Galoof, like, throw a sleep gas grenade in this direction or something and I didn't see? He was the one who suggested sneaking on board, so, like... Can we steal their ship? We're stealing their ship! Yeah! Ow! Hell yeah! Faris got the pirate accent! Yeah! Galoof more like Galoof. Uh-oh. They got the club! Lena, don't tell the pirates that you're a princess, you clown. None of these goons know who Lena is. That's great. This will definitely work. Yeah, exactly. Beg the pirates. Show them the sparkly thing. Ah, shit. Lena, you played your like reverse card too soon. Also, they only need one goon to move Lena. Farming elixirs? Perhaps I should, but also... Holy God. I forgot he swears. Great, whose idea was it anyhow to steal a fucking pirate ship? There's an enemy here that drops them. I think it's just the fact that it's like super early. That's right, Butters, super early, and you can harvest them. I remember this because again, very recently I watched Sears' odyssey of a playthrough of FF5. I kind of realized I didn't link that last time, but I assume almost by this point that everybody is aware of this video. But just in case, here you go. If you want to put that in your watch later, so that way you can go, oh my God, this fucking psychopath. He wanted to do what? And he beat it. He did, in fact, beat the game with no access to his start menu, among other things. Oh shit, I haven't seen that one yet. I gotta dig through that. The symbols used to replace cursing are collectively called agrolix. That is a very good name, actually, Roundy. Thank you for the piece of information. Michael Jackson the fuck out of it. Jesus. Princess of Tycoon had the same pendant as me own. Oh, so is the spoiler that Faris is actually Shala? Hey, Chrono Trigger fans, I got something for you. An even stupider fan theory than you usually would get for that franchise. Well, hey, it would be a good reason to put the, it'd be a good reason to actually put, Chrono Trigger in Final Fantasy Chronicles. We all just kind of hopped out of the hold pretty effectively there. Release him. Ah, shit, he's gonna throw us right in the ocean. No, we've been conscripted. There we go. That's the correct word. The guy named Trapmaster. Jesus. Just like Yu-Gi-Oh! Wait. No. Yeah, definitely, let's just say that there's a lot of things that have aged shockingly poorly. Gar. Should I spoil that Faris is Lena's sister? Ooh. The biggest book of pirate R's. Yeah, the localizer here. I think this was a Ted Woolsey project. Just really dipping in deep into some of these. Call it gaping. It is. What the fuck? What the fuck, Brian? That's. God. The guy could have actually, like, come in and blown you up with a flashbang and it would have been less, like, what the fuck? I think I know what you're talking about, but thinking, Jesus, man, that's one hell of a oh man, the 90s end backwards. Ooh boy. Hydra, introduce yourself. Change it for the month. I mean, I'd accept it. And there's our friend Sildra, called Hydra in this version, strangely. I forgot that. Listen, this is the important part here is that we're looking at a snake-powered boat. It's like the ship that's powered by the chocobos in 10. In that it is nothing like that at all, but we now get to boat around and do boat things. Ah, that'll be fun. That'll be some good shit when you get there. This is such good shit, etc. As I do the voice very wrongly. But you can see we also got some rivers around here. Unfortunately, we cannot take the sailboat onto the rivers. That's a little bit much for our dealings here. Let's quickly take a save. Look at all them free blocks we got. As everybody's class is listed as bear as opposed to freelancer, but we can take a quick look at some stuff here. I don't know if we're going to be able to really discern anything of great use out of these stats other than strength being called vigor, I suppose. And also, yeah, Bart's butts. Larry. He's got the most damage out of this entire party. Of course, part of it here is that he's got a broadsword. Lena's got, like, just a pocket knife, probably. And Galoof has 2 unarmed. He's double unarmed. And Faris has got a dirk, so actually a proper dagger. I mean, a real weapon as opposed to just a utility knife, and a leather shield missing an A. Well, that's character limits for you, ain't it? I suppose it's that, or put icons in places. And here we are at the Wind Shrine. This is a great place for us to come in and grind for stuff if we wish. Because there's a healing location here, I believe. Is it right here? Might be right here. The wind suddenly stopped. Don't you hate it when that happens? Ah, he probably got eaten by a mold wind or whatever they're called. And that's how you get the elixir out of one of them, is just they processed him into an elixir. A Muldoon. Muldoon, where is that Dutch fella? I miss doing group activities. Okay, I guess the monsters are not on the first floor, which is fairly sensible, but Crew Dust, yeah, that's definitely a pretty good name. And we got White Snake going on here. David Coverdale coming in to sing us a song. Or something. Meanwhile, Faris done got paralyzed. Oh god, yeah. That was a That was a translation choice. Don't shoot, this man is not black. Oh, jeez. Makes you wonder if they knew what they were doing or not, but I'm going to assume yes. Ooh, first strike. It's okay, I don't think any of these goons had first strike when they were printed in Magic, so they're more powerful here. Wow. As I have to sit back and go, wait a second, I think Butts was the only one who actually got a card in the Final Fantasy set. It's okay, Final Fantasy V is not the most beloved game in the entire series, tragically. Oh. Nah, I don't save in the memo file, let's just save in here. Actually, here, I can control duck while I'm not clicked on it, right? Yeah. So I can actually go look up what I just referred to. I'm not moving forward yet because my brain is just like, oh, is that... I don't remember this dungeon layout too well, so I'm going, is that a boss? Okay, yeah, Butts is the only other playable characters from FF5 who got a card in the Final Fantasy Magic set. Exdeath and Gilgamesh, of course, got cards also, but, I mean... that'd be a little bit like, the fuck are you doing if you don't do that, right? Well, you gotta remember, once again, Retro, there's only a 10-letter limit on enemy names in this game, so... they weren't able to complete the word black in there, so I guess the other alternative is, like, take out a letter from Goblin. Goblin. Maudlin, there we go, that's our... Maudlin, that's our enemy. Maldwin? Ho ho ho. Yes. Yes, the old Groger. The old ho ho ho. Green giant. The Groger being like incredibly memorable. Of course, I gotta think that at least part of it is added on to the fact that for a lot of people, a lot of their memory surrounding the old Groger is probably attached to the fact that it appeared, like, right at the beginning, basically, of 8-bit theater. Where I think it was referred to as the Green Giant repeatedly, which, I mean, technically that's not correct, but, you know. Fucking who cares if it's for the sake of being funny. And it's not like people don't refer to, like, everything by slang, almost. I'm definitely going to talk about party members getting killed when, generally speaking, in a Final Fantasy, despite what any of the localizations will tell you, you don't die until after everybody gets knocked out. Because then the local wildlife just eats you or something. Presumably. Yeah, that, Lears. People die when they're killed. People die when they are hit by the effect of the death spell. Also when they don't eat. That's correct. Yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of the things that have gone back and rechecked old translations have gone back to using the raise, arise, re-raise structure for the life spells. Because, yeah, technically they weren't actually considered life spells in most of the Japanese versions for a while. Yeah, we can definitely get some more levels with those urns. I'm hoping to see more maudlins or whatever they were called, moldwins, show up here. And maybe we can collect some elixirs that way. Because those will be nice to have for later. I probably won't require them for too long of a time. But they would still be quite nice to have. Could sell them and buy more fire rods or something. I don't know. Nah, they're probably not worth that much. There we go. There's a mauled one for us. A maudlin. Yeah, apparently Moldwind is much closer, actually. It's just that the newer versions are just that, but spelt with a Y instead of an I. So, hey, that translation that he was using was more accurate, which doesn't surprise me, actually. I don't know what translation Seer was using for that video. Clearly some sort of patch for the SFC, but past that, that's all the information I have. Anyway, those guys are not very common, which is unfortunate. I don't know if there's a way to make this emulator operate faster. So I don't know how much we're going to grind on stream or anything, because that might get a little bit tiring. But I'm also really bad about actually going back and doing grinding off stream. Don't know offhand. And yeah, Lears, I'm emulator-ing, because I didn't feel like putting the game in my PS2. I do, however, own a copy of FF Anthology. It is Anthology, right? Fuck, now I have to go look again. I kept joking about which one was the wrong one, and now it's like, oh, god damn it, I'm stupid. Yeah, okay, it is FF Anthology. Not Chronicles. I'll get it right eventually. I won't. I do have a copy of it. I could use it on console, but I don't know. My PS2 is very aged. It's a quite old model of PS2. It's a fat model of PS2. It's not a big fan of doing stuff with PS1 discs. I mean, it will do it. It just likes to complain. Delete the ISO after 24 hours. Yes, and then I'll re-download it. It just entirely crumbles to sand. It's not quite that far, but sometimes I do worry. There was a recent driver update for Blu-ray drives that was released by somebody that allows you to rip discs from things like Xbox games, GameCube games. Is that usable for PS1? Because I know that the black surface of the disc does something with lasers and makes them work less. Basically, it's sort of a thing that interferes a little bit, but I cannot recall the specifics past that because, quite frankly, it hasn't come up very often. Oh right, the Tonberry card from I still have the fucking FF set from Magic open. The Tonberry card is very specifically tagged as being the FF5 Tonberry. So yes, Magic did actually print Dingleberry as a piece of cardboard. They didn't print the name on there, but like, man, I actually wish I had the artistic talent to alter stuff. Just turn that into an FF5 screenshot. Somebody gets very upset about it because no sense of humor. Meanwhile, you look at some of the other altars that they will say absolutely jack nothing about. Oh yeah, I guess our potions are tonics in this game, huh? Very FF6 translation there. Because I think I think the potions in FF6 were tonics. I remember that the ethers were tinctures. But as I said before, I don't think I've played FF6 in like 20 years. So I probably need to get around to replaying that someday. It'll happen eventually. That would be a good time too, because of course people are talking about stuff related to FF6 a lot right now, because looks over at 14 and the current big raid. Which is old Kefka Palazzo again. For You Mad. Dancing Mad Ultimate. Ooh, we got an elixir. Hell yeah. At least we got one, so hey. We've gotten somewhere with that, right? Ooh, we got a 3-pack of Maudlins. Moldwins. 4 head snakes. There we go. That's the correct name. We got a broadsword. So surely we can equip that to somebody. Can you equip that? Yes, and then Lena would be able to do some more damage. Let's take a look and see if we can get any sort of appropriation of anybody's speed stats. And I don't think they're going to give us that information. So, Faris, you gain very little for that, actually. Never mind. Now, if I equip Galoof with the broadsword, he's going to be able to only do 1 hit. So I actually kind of like him being able to double punch. Which means that... Lena, you take the sword. And... oh, there's nothing in here. Darn. Well, let's see if we can't take a couple more fights before we go look at this thing that is clearly a bit more of an issue. Oh, nice. Yeah, another regroup of mauled ones here. All the wind. Wait. Yeah, so this is clearly the place for us to go grind. So we can fight the Cope Seath and Mauled Winds here and get stuff. Because they seem to be quite common in this room and in groups of 3. Slightly unfortunate that they're a little further back from ye oldie pot of health, but hey. We got the money mage here, huh? Do he drop good money? Only 78. That's not incredible, but I also was not looking too closely at how much we were getting out of anything else, so it might actually be extremely high. And we got some leather shoes. That presumably is useful. Goes in the relic slot. It gives us 1 extra of each defense. And increases weight value by 1, at least for Lena. Is that going to bear out for everybody? The answer is yes. These shoes weigh 1 weight unit. Duststar, hello. How's everything going? We're out here fighting a bunch of these guys because we'd like to get some more elixir drops if we can, but they are a bit rare. It's going all right. We did just kind of start, to be fair, so. The main thing that I can say about it right now in terms of anything negative is that there are some instances of some slightly long load times. One of them landed a crit. Oh, wow. Galoof just got moited. We are going to be slugging our asses back to the pot. As far as the translation being dry, bland, I don't necessarily know that that's entirely true. It's definitely... So, from what I recall about the other translations of this game is that they tend to be expanded upon, but honestly, I don't always think that that's for the best. Because they can be a little bit, not great about certain things. This does at least have a fair bit of character, but it might just be kind of impossible to squeeze all the character out of this game. There are definitely some very odd choices that are made in this one. I think that a large part of this translation actually might still be sourced from the not quite finished Ted Woolsey localization of Final Fantasy V that was very nearly released in the US as Final Fantasy Extreme and significantly less nearly released in the US as Final Fantasy III. I don't remember exactly why they dropped it, but it got very far. I would kind of assume that the Final Fantasy Extreme idea was a thing that cropped up very much around Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, because, of course, Mystic Quest was designed to be an entry-level RPG. Because I think that the big takeaway that Square had was that the genre was simply too confusing for a lot of Westerners. And then they just sort of peeled things back a little bit too severely. Which is what happens a lot of the time when you get these sort of like, oh yeah, we made this for newcomers kind of products. Any particularly old Magic heads will remember the Portal products and how much those took out of the game. Again, I'm in here bringing up my special interest again. Fuck Wizards of the Coast, by the way, but I digress. So, you definitely would have ended up in a situation with FF Mystic Quest, where it was far too simple of a game. Compared to any of the later RPGs, and too stripped back and with a few too many things added in a couple of places, that it really did not resemble games in the rest of the franchise that closely. Yeah, it's very much its own thing. And yeah, Wizards of the Coast is like... God, what the fuck are they even doing, man? I mean... Holy shit, that was one hell of a goblin punch. Butts, you should probably take a tonic after this fight, because I don't know if I feel like walking back to the pot right now. Like, okay, I'll lump Galoof's dead ass back there, but... Here we go. Unfortunately, Mark, I think you are correct.
One way or another will be the judge.
And by that, I mean, you don't want to be, but also they are ruining fucking everything. I mean, the shit they were doing with the union busting in the first place was bad enough, but oh boy, the fact that they're out here like, oh yeah, you gotta dead name yourself to big oof. Is it that quiet? Yeah, it is actually kind of quiet, come to think of it. I apologize. I think it's just that the emulator is a bit noisier and my sound balance is dog butts. But not in a remotely interesting way. Whatever that's supposed to mean. But yeah, I just... Man, every time I think about Magic, though, and I do always, on the other hand, think of, like, all the other ways that Wizards of the Coast has fucked up. And I just kind of go... Man, this is your breaking point, huh? With anything that anyone ever is like, oh yeah, the Dan Fraser ring is going to turn you away. And not the fucking Pinkertons? And not fucking over Lisbeth Eden because she had an OnlyFans that was completely unrelated to the project? And not Secret Lair? And not Universes Beyond? And not, let me reiterate, the cock fucking Pinkertons? Anyway. Yeah, the sheer amount of UB that is like, man, I don't give a shit about Marvel superheroes. If I wanted to play a Marvel card game... God damn it, there is a Marvel card game out there already. And even for the Final Fantasy sets. Again, I do love Final Fantasy, and I think that fits a little bit better than, like, just shoving in Captain America or whatever. But again, there is a Final Fantasy card game already! For fuck's sakes, man! The thing, was that the Stuart Copeland one? Yes, I did. I apologize, because, thought maybe you might have seen it, and it's like, that I was gonna say, I thought you might have seen that I reposted it, because I'm pretty sure I did. But also, Blue Sky is about as functional as... Well, about as functional as you could ask for something that's vibe-coded, but I digress. Yeah. That website, calling Blue Sky a functioning platform is, like... Yeah, if its user base didn't have the juice, then, like, I would just be like, okay, guess I'm done with social media, LOL. The fuck with all you cats, I'm just gonna post only on obscure forums and plurk for the rest of my life. And if none of you like that, or you're too cowardly to follow me, well then... why am I describing you that way, to be honest? But, alright. I mean, yeah, it's definitely that. They're... Klaus gets you Werner Herzog dynamic going on. And then the third guy who just did his job competently. Yeah. Anywho. I... have to wrangle the scroll bar here a little bit in order to sort of scroll back through a couple of things here that I missed. Yeah, Dustar, I think part was that RPGs were still kind of a niche genre, like popular, but publishers thought they were riskier. That's definitely true. I mean, again, Final Fantasy IV, then known as Final Fantasy II, kind of sold like shit. But I think part of that is more down to, like, poor advertising or poor availability or anything. Discord groups are returning to something awful. I would stick with Discord groups. Mostly because I don't think I'd make it on something awful. Just in general. But, also, yeah, I mean, there's that. And also, another thing on top of it is just, like, regardless of, oh, I don't think I'd fit in, I'm a fucking cheapskate. I'm not paying them $10 so that way I can get a user base that's as shit as everywhere else. It's always funny, asterisk, to get people who are like, oh yeah, well, the $10 fee means the cream rises to the top. And people just sort of underestimate how much some people who have literally nothing in their lives are willing to pay $10 to be a complete fucking cunt to random people on the internet. All you gotta do is look at the people who sub to Twitter Blue, but I digress, or whatever the fucking paid thing is called now that Elon Musk has decided to inflict his high school level naming scheme on it. Do you do that for exactly? It's Google numbers guy. I can't place that off the top of my head, so I'll just go with you. Oh man. God, people are they do such strange things, you know? Anyhow. Yeah, so, admittedly, I do still have a small amount of Magic things sitting on my wish list, which is probably not necessarily the best look, but I do mostly sit in this place with Magic where it's like, okay, special interests attached to it still, of like, I still really love the setting and the rules, but do you ever have those things where it's like, the guy who's creating this is absolute shit, and I could do so much better, but your basic ideas... As I just sort of look over at, like, every gacha game ever, and I just kind of go, yeah, I could write this better than you could, if only that was your actual concern, was real quality. But no, you just want the money. And that's why the cast of every Hoyo game looks literally the same. Because design takes time, and time... due to some sort of weird alchemy, time apparently is also money. I don't understand this principle, but... I mean... whatever. Read the all bans. What? Jesus Christ, I have yet to hear that. Dustar, that's some lore choice. And yet again, the model is just the same. Yeah, like, I played Star Rail for a little while. I picked it up in, like, version 2 point something or other, and I dropped it, I want to say, right before 3.1. Basically, I picked it up during Black Swan's banner and just barely didn't get her. And then they introduced her wife, and I ended up pulling her, like, immediately. big loud asterisk here. Legally speaking, I have to point out that Acheron is not actually technically Black Swan's wife because Chinese game, something, they are not really very progressive about specifically things related to queer matters. But also, as I say, I could write this better than you guys could if you weren't fucking cowards and you would just let me do it. And you were actually concerned about having real quality instead of just things that sell. Meanwhile, Deadlock character bio, Johnny is an asshole at the end. That sounds like, to be honest with you, probably as much as one of those games truly needs, because I can't imagine that too many people are looking at the lore that deeply of any sort of, like, MOBA-style title like that. Like, I think about just how much lore there is in some characters for Dota, and it's like, some of this shit actually goes real hard. But how many people are actually going to be able to tell you that Oracle's whole deal is that he can actually create the future with his predictions, and basically he was just fucking with this one king the whole time, and he blew up reality, which allowed him to escape from being in the king's employ? And the answer is that, like, probably a couple of quote-unquote, excuse the phrase here, but content creators could, but as far as player base, yeah, fat chance. Ain't nobody reading that shit. The crystal's broken. Oh, we saw that during the intro, the intro cutscene. Yeah, no, I love stuff like that. I am an enjoyer of video games, stories, and, you know, other media stories, not just video game stories. I definitely spoke those words in a really crusty order. Oh, Faris is a fire type despite being a pirate. That's of interest. Actually, I think there's just sort of a general thing where all of these four main characters and their elemental affinities are supposed to be like a weird opposite to what you would expect from the character in some way. Not necessarily because of personality trait or nothing. But, like, Bart's, I guess, I don't know why Bart's count. Why you would think of him as Earth? Maybe because he's just a wanderer. And Galoof, well, Galoof came from another planet, so him as wind kind of makes sense in a weird way. Again, I forget a lot of these details, but it's a thing that I literally just read very recently, so. The four chosen warriors, yes. Chosen by whomst? I do not understand all of them. I think that's just a bad translation mark, is that... Because, again, we are talking about a 90s translation here. That, again, the idea is supposed to be that they're all, like, attached to a personality trait. So I guess Quest is supposed to be, like, Wanderlust, probably. Again, I don't remember the more correct translation, and I have feelings about later versions of this game. And we unlock some classes. We get the Knight, the Monk, the Blue Mage. Oh, the Blue Mage. Oh, the fucking Blue Mage. Ugh. The Adventurous, yeah, I mean, that fits it pretty nicely. The Thief. And the Black Mage and White Mage. Naturally, we probably should get the Black Mage and White Mage, you know? That part makes sense. The Blue Mage. Ooh, boy. I'm still making a weird face about the Blue Mage, and I apologize if I get annoying. Or even if I don't. But Blue Mage is one of those classes that is like, okay, conceptually, this is actually very cool. And you have a very flexible character who's good at, like, basically everything in a game where an absolute generalist can actually be good. And they get some very interesting abilities out of it. Getting those abilities, though! My microphone probably doesn't like it when I make that noise. Well, tough shit is all I had to say to it. Yeah, so in this game, the Blue Mage is very, very straightforward. It's the archetypal Blue Mage, if you will. The Blue Mage learns enemies' special skills by having them used on them. Cool. So how do you learn, like, healing spells and stuff? You have to do some very serious tricks with a lot of them. There's also a couple of enemies in a few places where you have to do something very specific to them to get them to use the ability at all. For example, there is an enemy at one point in the game, I forget which one it is, that doesn't have enough mana to use the ability, so you have to throw an ether at it to get it to actually use it on you. And I forget what that is, but it's, yeah, it's... This is basically... Read a fucking guidebook to be able to get yourself a full retinue of blue magic. Yeah, basically Blue Mage is Smeargle, but with actual stats usually, because usually the Blue Mage is like the most absolute well-rounded character. It can actually fight, basically. Meanwhile, Smeargle is like, well, alright, it learned Nuclear Armageddon, so maybe it can do some damage now. Again, as far as I remember from Smeargle's stats, usually it's out there doing shit like Dark Void. Or in Generations where that's no longer available, other funny stuff. But yes, otherwise you have to find like mechanics to control enemies in order to learn moves like White Wind and stuff like that. Ask you how you know. Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all, too, really. Anywho, so in this game, Blue Mage, this is like the archetype of what the Blue Mage is like. This is the style of Blue Mage that you see in Final Fantasy XIV, where it is not allowed into roulettes because it is a serious balance breaker. Yeah, it is, like, to be expected. I guess what I'm saying here is that, like, this is the version of it that you see elsewhere in, like, enemy skill materia and shit like that. And really, I don't think they started mixing things up proper until FF9, where you had Quina, who was the rough equivalent of a Blue Mage, who just ate enemies when they were low HP and could learn moves that way. And then in FF10, you had Kimahri. Kimahri is one of the things... Kimahri is, like, the character that reminds me that, yes, they are always going to kneecap Blue Mage. Yes, Quistis was the one in FF8. I just don't remember how she worked mechanically. I think she was just sort of like the archetype again, as it were. But Kimahri has the easiest method of getting blue magic. You just cast Lancet on anything, and as long as it has a skill, you gain it permanently. You don't have to see the skill. You don't have to do any sort of, like, weird shenanigans with get the HP into a similar range. I haven't equipped jobs yet, Retro. We're getting there. But Kimahri's blue magic is tied only to his overdrives, and they fall off precipitously. They fall like a lead fucking weight. There's a couple of them that end up, like, staying useful throughout the game, like Stone Breath is usually still pretty good into the late game, where I think it is still basically an instant win button. But if you're doing anything where you require just damage, that overdrive command ain't getting used. And yeah, he doesn't even have like a proper jump. His jump, air quotes, is just an overdrive that's just like, oh, I punch you kind of hard. And kinda is like the operative word. I'm pretty sure that around the time that you are using it, you know, early enough on, it's like, oh yeah, Aaron basically hits for more with his regular attack, almost. And it just gets worse. Oh, my poor unfortunate large blue cat man. So let's take a quick look again at our classes here. And I don't quite know what exactly I'm going to do with everybody, but... Oh, he was useless in Record Keeper too. That's sad. That's very sad. I haven't played Record Keeper. Every once in a while I think about checking it out, but... I mean, my stance on mobile games is like... Listen, I hear good things about a lot of them from, like, story perspectives from a lot of people. I think I said a couple of streams ago, in fact, probably during my second episode of MGS, I said something about, like, how I'd been hearing from people that Nikke was actually a very, very good story. But I'm also just like, mobile games, you know, I don't need to be tempted to gamble more. So it's like, hey, if you can produce this for me without the gacha aspects, then maybe I have Balatron. Yes. If I want to do like more severe gambling, I have Clover Pit for that too. But I mean, I unlocked everything in Clover Pit and I didn't even buy the fucking DLC. So like, yeah, I think I'm a little done with that. Ooh, dash with cancel, but you know what? Bartz, why don't you become the thief? And you are now equipped with Lena's vaguely cardboardy knife. Galoof. Galuf, you become the white mage for us, please. Because a white mage is practically a requirement at any point. You always want a white mage. Faris Bueller. Faris, you go ahead and become... You know what? Why don't you become the blue mage? That's a pretty cool cape and mask, so, like, you get to be our resident cool dude. And Lena? Well... somebody's got to put these swords to use, so Lena, become a knight, please. Then maybe she can get some more well-rounded stats in the end here. Moment was harsh, fans. His limit break was his death. Oh man, that's fun. I enjoy that. Because I'm a sicko. You know what? Give me some tutorials here, Boko. We've been burning the hell out of time here just in general, so like... Yeah, why not? You receive the essence of a crystal... yeah, we understand that part. Tell me about, like, job levels and all the information I require for that. Yeah, you can turn Butts into a very standard-looking black mage. He's got a nice little add-on to his hat. Oh, this game's entire soundtrack is real good. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy game. I would really like to hope the entire soundtrack is good. Otherwise, it is kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here? Or at least a pretty large proportion of it is pretty good, right? You ever learn bass? Dude, you absolutely should pick up learning bass. I've kind of considered that too, which is... God, sometimes I worry that I accidentally feel like I accidentally feel like the Temu version of Round the Wheel, but that wasn't why I ever considered learning the bass guitar. Perhaps one of these days I will actually do it. Roundy's team. Hey, don't put yourself down that much, although I understand why it's easy to do, because, oh boy, the world is butts. And not this guy. Yeah, so I guess gaining our ability points is primarily focused on just do our class's stuff. That makes sense. Again, you have to remember, I haven't played this game in a long time, so if I'm over here like, oh yeah, I'm explaining the obvious to you, I apologize, but a large part of it is because I'm the buffoon here. Anyway, Roundy, you are, in fact, pretty good. Where's my... Oh, geez. In order to do what I was going to do as a follow-up there, this is going to take a second, but... You see... You might even say...
You're pretty good.
That's pretty quiet, actually. Oops. Well, I tried. Pretty good, not bad, can't complain. Yeah. And, you know, John Prine. Very with you there. Oh, which of my buttons is the B button to dash with? Heck, I may have to go get up and get the manual. Well, we got some Nut Eater here. Great name. Oh, so the ability points are just distributed through others. Yeah, no, that's 6. Like I said, I haven't played 6 in a million years. I probably should, like, do that. Maybe I'll do that on my own time. Well, before I actually stream it. But here's some stray cats. Speaking of cat scratching. Oh, that's very helpful. A big part of it for me is just like I wanted a bit of variety in our classes and get someone who can use a decent weapon. You know, it's not like Final Fantasy XIV where you're just stuck to using admittedly quite cool looking canes. You've never fully played any Final Fantasy game. That is actually quite surprising. Though, I guess, as I've cited to people before, you didn't fully play Chrono Trigger until you were like 40, so... Approximately. When do I get Monk? I actually have Monk on the Wind Crystal, so I could equip someone as Monk. Yeah, I mean, they're all quite long, to be fair. In terms of, like, what game to play, Roundy, if you need suggestions, which I guess why the hell not? Final Fantasy X, I find, is the one that's the easiest to play in terms of, like, most of the gameplay. Leveling system is a little bit bizarre, but it's easy enough to pick up. FF6 is another very good one. 4 as well. I don't necessarily know if I would recommend 5, just because 5 is one that I think is a little bit more mechanically complex. But it's not bad in that regard. Too lazy to put the 14 copy pasta here. I don't know if I would recommend 14 to a newcomer, mostly just by virtue of the fact that it's a completely different genre from most of the rest of them. So, like, it's a great game, but obviously if you're looking for a turn-based RPG, yes, it goes to Shadowbringers now, so you do actually get, like, Peak for literally $0. Which, by Square Enix standards, in the last few years, is absurdly generous. Like, man, I looked at the price for the Pixel Remaster Collection when it came out, and, you know, for hard copy, and I basically vomited on the spot. It was bonkers. Peak any FF for $0. Yeah. That's absolutely correct, sir. The big thing that I can say, actually, about any of them is not necessarily that I can directly recommend a game, but I can give a counter recommendation. Do not play Final Fantasy IX first. Not because FF9 is, like, absurdly hard or anything, but, I mean, it's kind of rough. It's one of those games that is much easier to appreciate as, like, a long-term aficionado. Because there is just so much shit that will just go right past you. And if you come back to it later when it's you're like immerse yourself in some of the deeper lore of the franchise, you'll be able to look at it and remember that it's also a 10th anniversary celebration of the franchise and just kind of go, oh, that's actually really cool. It's nice to see that again. And all the throwbacks. It's reasonably appreciable otherwise, but it's one of those things where it's like, then you'd have to go back for it later again. And whether or not you're necessarily going to want to do that is always hard to tell. And no retro, there is not. This version is quite bare. Not to be confused with the big brown furry thing that will attack you if you have food in the forest. I heard a story once about a bear just, like, basically tearing open the roof of a car because somebody had left a box of donuts in there. And personally, I'm going to assume it to be true because I didn't watch years upon years of the Colbert Report when I was a teenager to not, and 20-something, I guess, also, to not gain a bit, at least enough to go, like, yeah, don't fuck around with bears. So, hold up, quick question here. Our job levels, are these... They are not shared across characters. Fair enough. So yeah, grinding those out really is a big grind. Obviously. As you can tell. Is there anything going on here that we can land in this place? This is probably a very dangerous proposition to just... Oh, Jesus, yeah, that is looking a little bit, not great. But we're here, and we're gonna get a little bit adventurous with it here. I'm gonna save again while I'm wandering around this area, because those enemies are a little bit beefier, but probably safe? But again, this is what you should probably always do whenever you come into an unfamiliar territory, especially if it's just like, hey, here's this little chunk of land. What can I do over here? This looks like I don't know if I should necessarily be able to do much here. Because who knows when you're gonna drop right into the Peninsula of Power enemies by accident. And suddenly you thought you were going to be fighting an ogre. No, you're fighting a 4-pack of zombuls, and you are extremely dead. As far as I know, the Peninsula of Power on that level is basically just an FF1 thing, but there's definitely gotta be a lot of the games you can definitely, like, fumble into areas that are a little too dangerous for you. Oh, yeah, that is a very good location that I've used a non-zero amount of times. I've been there more than once. That's the important part. It is very useful, but you got to be ready for what you're going to be dealing with. Alright, yeah, we got our Bender Snatches here. Wait. Or Bandersnatch, pardon me. 3 group of them, which is a lot of HP to go around, but we did get a preemptive strike, so that's nice. All right, well, once again, thank you for dropping in, Mark. Always nice to see you. Always nice to see any viewers, period. I really appreciate it, in the words of Strong Bad. As I don't do a Strong Bad voice whatsoever, but in my defense, voices... I can't even do my own voice right most of the time. It sounds like it... like you've been hearing throughout any of these streams. And butts might be about to get clobbered. Gots to remember, I got white magic I can use. And plus, it's probably a better use of Galoof right now, because he... Oh, he doesn't have any white magic. Never mind. As I say, all he's got for damage are his fists, which are not a lot. Well, thankfully, we should just be able to go back to the Wind Shrine, right? We can use their pot again. Oh, hooray, we got a single tonic. Yes, that'll stanch my wounds nicely. Maybe if it had some gin. But, eh. Thankfully, we can use their jar of whatever healing stuff that is. That never seems to run out for some reason. Oop. Well, that was a good use of a boat. Alright, that I think is actually the place we need to go. Or is that somewhere further on? Just keep picking stuff up and basically just scan around the area in case there's anything that we've missed. Eh, leather cap. I think somebody is in need of a helmet, yeah? Oh, it's both Lena and Faris who need headwear. Hey, nice. We got our other hat. That's fantastic. Neighborino. Wait. If I want to do that, I gotta go into a full bit of Ned Flanders. You know, now that I think about it, there's a lot of vehicles in this game so far. We've got our ship, we've been on Boko, that's kind of like a vehicle. There's evidence that we will probably be getting a canoe. There's a few other chocobos as well. Alright, so here we are at Tool. They want to get drunk. It's fine. Pretty sure of yourself. It's scripted very much like something from the 90s for sure. Use the wind crystal to seal a terrible monster in the canal. That's slightly worrying. Wow, that fast? Eesh. Well, that's because you keep going in a circle. Okay, what do we got in here? Other than this guy who I keep looking up the timing of. So Faris just drops in like, hey, I want in on this. And we got some broadswords, a wooden rod, and a staff. I'm gonna grab a couple of each. The wooden rod allows us to attack from the back. Oh, right! This game has row mechanics. I forgot about that. Basically, I probably shouldn't need multiple of either of these weapons, but just in case. Yeah, we can equip the dirk instead of that thing. And Lena, you're fine for now. Yeah, I'm gonna equip the staff on Galoof. It doesn't let him fight from the back row, but that's okay. Might be useful eventually. There are some weapons that eventually we will want to have multiple of, and to quite a large extent. But for the time being, a lot of this stuff I'm picking up by virtue of it would be very good to have extras. I definitely don't need more leather caps because everybody has those, and we have 4 leather armors already, so yeah, I think we're good in that regard. Give Lena the shield. Ooh, is this a magic shop? Yes. Alright, let's buy Fire, Ice, Bolt, Cure, Scan, and Antidote. That should give all of those abilities to those classes permanently, I believe. I believe that's how this works. Yeah, because, see, I didn't have to equip that to anybody. So, briefly, we'll turn Butts into a white mage. And as you can see, yeah, everybody has it. They're just tied to the crystal. That's very helpful, in fact. Equip the secret ability there. And yeah, our equipment has been optimized. Unfortunately, we can't dual wield as the thief. I guess we're not, like, dexterous enough for that yet until we become double thief or something. Yeah, the inn and pub tied to the same building. Makes a little bit of sense. Alright, pirates. What's the deal? Faris, have you been holding out on us with, money-wise? You're able to pay for all this rum? They drank up the entire bar worth of booze? Eesh. Come on. That can't be cheap. Well, you managed to scare the shit out of the town, Faris, so now we gotta sneak into your room and throttle you. Don't we? Nope. Butts. And now Galoof is interested. Apparently Faris is pretty hot. As we get the audible stretch. Apparently it's audible anyway, it's in the dialogue, so. Alright, can we borrow your ship? Can we at least give you equipment? What's that thing in the corner? Oh. Some guy who's hidden by most of the graphics. And sorry, those containers don't usually have nothing in there. Crystal's power is amplified by a machine. I'd be careful with that. You might be able to overdo it pretty easily. Another one fell beyond the mountains to the west, huh? That sounds worthy of investigation at some point, but... Right, what do you've got? You've got regular items. I did say, what do you've got? That was some word usage, apparently. Hey, yeah, let's grab some tonics. Just because they will come in handy at some point. Only 10 to start out with. We'll get more later. But I do kind of want to be a little bit careful with my money for a little bit. Again, it's a Final Fantasy game. Money is usually not horrible throughout most of the game. But this is definitely a case where I'm going to, like, overbuy a lot of stuff. And there are certain items later on that I will want to massively overpurchase for at least a little while. Elemental rods, for example, are going to be a thing that I'm going to have a great usage for. Because you can basically use those to blow things up. But they are one-shots, so it's like, hey, they're equipment, but also they're kind of just bombs instead, also. Pretty sure this is Zock's house. Zock, is that like the brother of Jacques from 14? Jack, but with an E. Nah, he looks nothing alike, probably. Yep, we gotta get through the canal. Hey, Zock, do you have like a bazooka or something I can borrow here? Well, we literally just stayed at the inn. He's gonna go contact some pirates or something. I don't know. We get some very... I assume that's supposed to be like... just sort of nighttime... cricket sort of ambience, but... It's definitely really creepy sounding. Crickets, owls, you know. Oh, he's literally right over there. He can hear you. Just make sure you keep Linus it. Absolutely. Yeah, anything else to say to us, Zoc? Nope. And this is probably just Zoc's room over here, right? Nope, can't sleep in his bed. Dang. Alright, there's still a bunch of pirates here? Yeah, there's still a bunch of pirates here. Faris, you coming with us? Ah. Yeah, it would be rude to smash the door down. We'd have to pay for that. Oh. Yeah, just try to leave town, and Faris will return. Yeah, we will probably be needing a crew to operate the ship. Oh, what? You brigands guard the booty. I do enjoy the pirate writing for Faris. Yeah, be careful out there, Captain. Let's get on our boat. Go deal with the canal situation. That's kind of messed up, actually. Gradually, the earth would decay, fire would grow cold, waters would stagnate, earth would become uninhabitable. That's kind of fucked up. Can we fix any of the, like, the other one? I feel it in me bones. Yeah, I mean, hey. Can we get the bird back? Alright, well, here's our canal. We can go through this, right? Yeah, torn a canal. I hate it when I've torn a canal. Yeah, just get right up on the bow of the ship there and crack the thing open with your canal key. Octofist, huh? Fighting type octopuses? Fighting type octopuses. You guys remember Grapple-Oct from Gen 8? That's not a Pokemon that is really all that usable, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because I think it's really cool. And Octolock is such an interesting sounding move, and yet... And yet... Whirlpool. In the middle of the canal. We're gonna get sucked. Meanwhile, Galoof probably likes the idea of getting sucked. Wait. And down we go, into the void. Uh-oh, Siltra, cover us! We're fighting a boss. It's Carl Boss, everybody. His name is Carl, and he's the boss. This guy's name, of course, probably all know this. His name is actually Carlabos in most translations that are actually halfway decent. And he's using that tail screw. He is doing huge damage to us. You might recognize this dude from one of the dungeons in 14. I want to say Sastasha Hard. And yeah, that tail screw effect is also from that version of Carlabos. And it's a thing that a lot of people use to do some funny stuff with Blue Mage. Between that and freezing moves with the shattering effect. Yeah, they've definitely made more things that are immune to it. But it's useful for certain things to, like... You know, if you want to skip certain fights, it causes you to do that very easily. But yeah, Carlabos, not a hard fight. We managed to just beat the heck out of him, and... And yeah, you know, big, weird crustacean getting his ass whooped. I assume it's a he. He's named Carl, so like... Sildra, no! Get out of there! Get out of there, SpongeBob! Faris, I don't think you can actually pull Sildra out of the whirlpool, so don't... Well... Yeah, I mean, Sildra's a big water snake. You can probably take at least one whirlpool. As long as there isn't, like, a Carl Boss 2 over there that is significantly larger and crankier. Anyway, shit is a mess. It's a zombie nest, huh? Is that... Do zombies nest? Neat music. I like that one instrument, that one synthesizer that was starting that off. Yeah, let's rest. As Galoof takes the bed and everybody else just hits the stools. A save point here yet? Maybe it's further up. Alright, we got 2 Chris Slugs here and 2 Skeletons. Yeah, I figured that the cracked hole... Cracked hole, yeah, okay. I figured the cracked floor was probably not a thing we could just bypass that way. But I just had to be sure. Ooh, another tent. Not a lot of places to use it around here, but hey. Also, who wants to go camping in a fucking ship graveyard? This looks a little bit tough to pass. I see. We just gotta walk on the ocean floor here. And by ocean floor, I mean the floor of the ship, really, but still. Down we go. Are we underwater? If so, how are we breathing down here? See, there's two directions we can go, and I'm not sure which one will lead us forward or not. But I see this one has a location, another warp, rather, we can go to. In this case, it's a staircase, but using the phrase warp in the more technical sense. Okay, I think this room just has a chest. It's just for a Phoenix down, but I mean, that's kind of worth it. Those aren't the most common thing, especially at this point. Keep making our way onward here. Got another tonic. It's not doing much for us, but hey. Man, look at that enemy up there, the Psycho Heads. That's a hell of a thing, isn't it? Can we hit that with Can we hit these guys with some cure and deal damage to them because they're undeads? That should work, right? Yeah. I mean, truth be told, we can just kick the crap out of them the old-fashioned way, but Faris got hit with the sap there, so that's not so great. God, I hope that save point is soon. I know there's a boss in here, right? At least a save point, because this is definitely looking like a pretty important plot place here. Hey! And there I was thinking we were out of the water, but nope. I fell through a very small crack that doesn't look like it should fit us. But hey. Alright. Everybody lighting a fire. I mean, at least stand by the... shaking around like a dog. Oh, and now here's where we find out, yeah, Faris cross-dresses. So, this is where I want to talk about the fact that I chose to play the PS1 version as opposed to later versions. Because my understanding has been that a lot of the later versions, although they tend to beef up the script, they don't really handle this super well. And for a lot of folks, there's been more reading of this character as being of a gender identity that doesn't align with their assigned at birth sex. We'll say that. Just to sort of cover the bases that a lot of people kind of view Faris as somewhat of a trans character. So it felt a little bit more fitting to play this one during this time, even though technically I could be playing one that's a little more technologically advanced and has extra content and all that other. But also we do get the funny pirate script. I will be trying to refer to Faris as they throughout the playthrough, which also kind of fits in with the thing that I was talking about before about Faris's stats, that Faris has stats that are set kind of in the middle of where the male character's stat sets align versus the female characters. So they were trying to do something interesting with Faris, I think. It just didn't necessarily come across, and of course, localization is, well... Listen, Japan has been ahead of the curve compared to us on a lot of that stuff for quite a while. Yes, Japan has also made some things that are kind of offensive in terms of matters of how they handle queer characters. And that covers both things that are intended to offend and things that are explorations of identity. When it comes to that, I don't think that... I think that there are certain places where queer folks don't necessarily have that much of a right to be offended about how certain people express themselves willingly. Because there are certain expressions of that identity that will be kind of like third rails for a lot of people, that they will generally be considered a little bit like they won't be okay with how that's done, with how people express themselves. So that is something where I think that there are certain places where it's just like, okay, if you don't like it, shut up, because the thing that you personally find that you find degrading or perhaps even dehumanizing, for someone else, that may be a way that they feel seen. And Yeah, so Faris basically gives us sort of the Naoto Shirogane explanation of dressing like a man because they wouldn't be taken seriously. Galoof, you're just bisexual. Good transcription of the accent, too. I find that very fun. Accent, I don't know if talk like a pirate counts as an accent. But for some reason, that's the way that I was describing it. Anyway, all of you just sort of, like, accepted that these 4 random beds were totally safe. Is this not a very convenient location for them? Yeah, and see, Butts is onto something. Faris is Faris. Nice and simple. Don't be a fucking weirdo about this. A save point. Hell yeah. Good times. Plus, we already got healed, so we don't have to worry about feeding this thing a tent. Ah, not the memo file. Not a quarter. He'll be dancing for hours. Wait. Okay, let's climb out of this chunk of boat. This bit of boat, and have ourselves a look around the gangplanks up here. The Gangplank Galleon. Gangway Garbage. Gangland Galleon. Wait. God, when's the last time I played a Donkey Kong Country game? A while ago, and unfortunately they were the GBA versions. I guess I was just kind of curious about how those played. Plus, I was able to pick them up for dirt cheap at a disc replay eons ago, so I was like, hey, I may as well have those in the collection, yeah? Put them in the Horde. Ah, dang it. Nice job, Galoof. Nice fucking aim, Galluf. Galuf. Well, at least these skeletons are pretty safe to take on as fights. Just very, very easy enemies. Honestly, no reason to even bother throwing Cure at them for more damage, even though that would be more damage. Hey, we got a world map. That's probably pretty useful. Just taking a guess here. Ooh, some treasure chests. We got an antidote. An antidote. An encounter between walking over to these chests. That often feels very silly. Got a lumber beast here. That doesn't look like it's made out of wood. We get a Phoenix down. Well, that's slightly more worth it than Antidote, so I guess it's fine that there was an encounter between those. Just very silly. Right, here we are on the other side. You had a bad feeling about this? Yeah, I'm sure there's a boss, right? Stella? No, oh, right, it's Butts' mom is the thing that he's seeing. Like, she just looks like a generic NPC, and yeah, Butts' mom did in fact just look like a generic NPC. Say, meanwhile, Faris is not taken in by this. And yet, actually, somehow she is, so that's interesting. Who's this little girl? Aloof's granddaughter, I see, huh? Well, he doesn't remember. And that's the thing, because he's brain damaged, he is safe from this. By brain damaged, I mean, not literally, but... Oh yeah, that's definitely Siren. Good guy Galoof. He slaps Bart's ass, wow. And of course he's doing it to the girls too. I mean, you gotta wake someone up somehow, right? And again, equal opportunity, he slapped Butts' butts too, so... Boss fight time? Boss fight time. Alright. So this is interesting because, if I'm remembering this fight correctly, Siren switches back and forth between a regular and an undead form. As I say, that's a protest was the... Yeah, changed to undead. And that is our cue to do this. We can also chuck potions. I don't know if a Phoenix down is an instant kill. Let's find out. Nah. Not against this boss. But, he's been squeezed, and apparently that... I would assume that has caused him to be poisoned. And unfortunately, she's under Protect right now. Yeah, he's poisoned. So, truth be told, our best damage is actually just throwing tonics. And casting Cure and shit like that. On the other hand... we definitely want to reserve our cure spells for ourselves because, oh boy. Actually, do you have anything to steal? No, Galoof, no! He died. She had nothing to steal. Well. Dang it. Alright, Galoof, get up. Stop being so on the floor. Alright, she's back to normal. Which means that she's taking regular damage again. And she's hasting herself. That's great. Unfortunately, it didn't matter because she was right at the end there. Well, we wasted a Phoenix down during that fight, and we ended up having to use another one to revive Galoof, but all considered, not too terrible. Surely we'll have access to more of those at some point, right? Yeah, it's very funny. We owe him our lives, and he's the one who died during the fight, so he owes all of us his life, too. Or something. Alright, everybody get healed. And Lena, you should be able to equip that bronze armor, right? It's really jacking up that weight stat. I don't know how much of an effect on anything that weight effect has just yet. I assume it's pretty severe, though. But hey, we're on the other end of the ship graveyard, and unfortunately, we are currently lacking our ship, although Sildra got sucked, so, I mean, that thing probably wouldn't be super useful right now. Yeah, the Gatlings here. I'm assuming that Gatlings does a counterattack, because it would just make sense with the style of enemy, right? Alright, Faris, go for the thing in the back, because your damage is not that high right now being a blue mage, which makes sense. I'm not always certain of, like, why blue mage is has such hardy damage, but it's usually so well balanced that it actually has physical capabilities. It's interesting. Thinking about that kind of makes me want to pull up FF Tactics Advance again, which I haven't played in a while either. I still have my cartridge. Ooh, hey, Garula. I could have sworn this guy was a boss, but maybe he's both a boss and a regular enemy. Anyway, big elephant dude. He's probably got a metric shitload of HP. Let's give him the biz, though. Do as much as we're able. And you know what? Even Galoof can get some swings in. Why not? Oh, wow. It's still not responding. It's just that slow? Or does it only respond to certain actions? Or I was going to say, or worse, is it on a timer and this fight will just go up in flames if we take too long. But ultimately, whatever the case was, we got out of there. And we're here to Kerwin Town. We've got stuff to investigate. We got a shop here. What did you got for sale at the item shop? Obviously, we're probably going to want to check out other places a little bit more, but we've got tonics, antidotes, eye drops, Maiden's Kiss, cornucopia? I don't know what the hell that is. Soft, I know what that is, so. Phoenix Down, and tent. Unfortunately, our finances are not looking very good right now. 5 grand? I mean, that's something at least, but we could really use a lot more. for now, let's go take a look at some gear. Let's see, we got long swords available. Let's grab 2 long swords. And I think that's the only real update, because that's just the plain staff there, right? And the wooden rod. And we don't really have to worry too much about a dirk, because we already have one of those equipped to dork. So we'll equip them with the long swords. But you literally can only equip daggers. It's a pity you can't dual wield. That would be real good for you right about now. Alright, what do we got? We got bronze shields, bronze helmets, bronze armor, bronze plate, cotton robes. Well, Galoof, you probably would like something a little bit better than absolutely nothing. Take 2 bronze plates, bronze helmet, and 2 bronze shields. And now armor everybody up nicely. Cotton robe on him. And lastly, here, because the blue mage can equip some pretty serious armor and weaponry considering for a frickin' mage. And you best believe we will. Okay, we've got protest, so I assume that that's just protecting it doesn't turn us into a Zambino, but we got shield, we got sleep, we got mute, so we've got a nice set of stuff there. Yeah, let's go and take a look at everybody here. Oh no, we already have guard. Never mind. That was just like enhanced, I guess. Oops. Oopsie. Go back in here. Flee. You just get a higher level white magic ability. Oh yeah, we should definitely have learning equipped there for blue mage. Hold up, what's the check ability? Get enemy HP and weakness. Okay, so it's basically just sort of a simple and cheap scan, I guess, in that case. Well, it's a nice place to stop off, but we're certainly not at Tim Wall's there, which is our next major target, I think. But for now, we're butting up against the usual end of stream here, so I'm gonna save. And who knows, by next time I play this, you might see me having ground out some more money and job experience. I will confirm absolutely nothing at this point. But I suppose it probably couldn't hurt. Although it does also make me run the risk of making the game too easy. I'll figure it out. Anyway,